All right, let's dive into Jose Rizal's Noli Me Tangere, and we're going to untangle one of the novel's most interesting characters, Kapitan Tiago. Now, most of you probably already know Noli Me Tangere. It's a powerful critique of Spanish colonialism in the Philippines. But what makes Kapitan Tiago so fascinating is that he's not just a character. He's a walking, talking paradox of that era. On the surface, this guy seems to have it all, right? Rich, lavish parties, friends with powerful friars, living the dream. But when you look closer, you start to see the cracks in this perfect facade. So, is Kapitan Tiago a master manipulator of the colonial system? Or is he secretly its victim? That's the mystery we're going to unravel.
You know, what's so compelling about Tiago is that he embodies perfectly the messy reality of Filipino life under Spanish rule. And to really get him, you have to understand the historical playing field. So think of it like this. Imagine a system where Spaniards were just handed these huge chunks of land, the encomienda, and basically controlled Filipino labor.
Oh, okay. So basically,
Yeah.
a rigged game from the start.
Exactly. And this created a tiny elite, often through exploitation, while resentment simmered among everyday Filipinos. So, now drop Capitan Tiago into this pressure cooker. He's Filipino. But he's amassed a fortune. How did he do it? Was he a shrewd operator? Did he just get lucky? And how did he deal with the glaring injustices all around him, especially as a wealthy Filipino?
Yeah. Because you would think
Yeah.
being wealthy would give you some leverage.
Yeah.
But then, you see how he interacts with someone like Padre Damaso? This super powerful, not so nice friar. Tiago practically grovels. It's like he's terrified of him.
It's more than just fear. It reveals the power dynamics of the time. Tiago, despite his wealth, is desperate for acceptance by the Spanish elite. He's almost like a chameleon, changing colors to fit in. He throws these European-style parties, tries to downplay his Chinese ancestry.
Almost like he's ashamed of being Filipino.
It's not so simple. He's trapped in a system that tells him his own culture is inferior. And to survive, he has to play by its rules, even if it means suppressing parts of his identity.
Yeah.
You know, remember, Tiago wants to marry his daughter Maria Clara into a wealthy Spanish family.
Oh, yeah. I was reading that part. And it hit me. Is this just a father wanting the best for his daughter, or is there something more calculated going on here? It's like, is Tiago trying to buy his way into the Spanish inner circle through this marriage?
That's the million-dollar question. And it forces us to ask, how far would any of us go to protect our family, to secure our place in a society that constantly tells us we're not good enough? You know, Tiago's story, though set centuries ago, suddenly feels very relevant, doesn't it?
Chillingly relevant. And here's another layer that adds to Tiago's complexity. He's not just a social climber. The guy's actually quite devout. He goes to Mass.
Yeah.
Participates in all the religious rituals. So was this genuine faith, or was it another tool for social advancement?
That's where Rizal is so brilliant. He doesn't hand us easy answers. It's likely both. You know, imagine growing up in a world where the church holds immense power. Faith is ingrained in you from childhood. It's part of your cultural fabric. But at the same time, piety is a currency. It opens doors. Gets you close to powerful people like Padre Damaso.
So, Tiago's walking this tightrope, trying to balance genuine belief with using that belief to his advantage. No wonder the guy seems so conflicted.
And to make matters even more complicated, Tiago's wrestling with a deep personal tragedy. The loss of his son. How did this shape him? Did it harden him? Make him more cynical? Or did it make him cling even tighter to his faith and his desire for a secure future for Maria Clara?
I was heartbroken reading about Tiago's grief, and it made me wonder, underneath all the social maneuvering, is there a flicker of genuine human emotion in this guy? Is he capable of empathy? That's what we're going to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah, that question of Tiago's empathy, that's a crucial one.
Yeah.
And to understand him, we need to look beyond just his actions and delve into, you know, how Rizal portrays his inner world. And there's this one scene during the elaborate procession for the Feast of San Diego. Remember, Tiago's the Hermano Mayor, the big sponsor. And it's
Perfect.
almost comical. It's the one where he's just handing out candles like they're going out of style.
Yeah.
I was picturing people going home with enough candles to light up a small village. Exactly. It's over the top, almost performative. You know, Tiago's putting on this show of piety. But then Rizal contrasts him with Padre Salvi, who completely ignores important figures, like Tiago and Ibarra.
That's such a subtle but powerful detail. It's like even with all his wealth and influence, Tiago's still trying to impress the real power player, the church.
Precisely. It highlights how deeply ingrained that power imbalance is. And speaking of power dynamics, let's talk about Tiago's relationship with Padre Damaso. anything but a healthy friendship.
That's putting it mildly. Damaso is downright abusive, constantly belittling Tiago. Like there's that scene where Damaso makes the cruel remark about Tiago's deceased son. I was cringing reading it. And Tiago just sits there and takes it. Why doesn't he stand up for himself?
Well, think about the context. Challenging a friar like Damaso could have serious consequences, so Tiago's playing it safe. Even if it means enduring humiliation, it shows how deeply he craves acceptance, even if it comes at the cost of his dignity.
It makes me wonder, was Tiago truly devout? Or was faith just another tool for survival in this cutthroat colonial world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Rizal masterfully avoids giving us a simple answer. He leaves us to ponder the complex interplay of faith, power, and self-preservation.
It's like Tiago's constantly juggling these different masks. The devout Catholic, the wealthy businessman, the social climber. It's exhausting just thinking about it.
And it raises another interesting question about Tiago. How did he reconcile his Filipino identity with his desire to be part of the Spanish elite? Remember, he adopts a Spanish name, throws European-style parties, even tries to erase his Chinese heritage.
It's like he's trying to fit into this exclusive club that doesn't really want him. But
There are these moments where Tiago's Filipino roots shine through. Like, he shows kindness to the less fortunate. He has this fondness for his hometown.
exactly. It's as if he can't completely erase who he is, no matter how hard he tries. So this internal conflict, this being pulled between two worlds, never fully belonging to either, makes Tiago such a tragic figure. Heartbreaking, really. He's caught in the system that pits Filipinos against each other, rewards assimilation, and punishes anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. It makes you wonder, how many real Filipinos faced this same struggle during that era?
And that's what makes Noli Me Tangere so powerful, It's not just a historical novel, it's a reflection on the human condition. Tiago's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about the compromises we make, the systems we perpetuate, even unknowingly.
So is Tiago a villain, a victim, or something in between? I feel like Rizal is challenging us to look inward and ask ourselves, where do we stand in the face of injustice? Are we bystanders, collaborators, or are we actively fighting for a more just world?
And that leads us to the most crucial question. How does Tiago's story end? What are the ultimate consequences of his choices? We'll unpack that. And the deeper meaning of his legacy. In the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've spent all this time unpacking Kapitan Tiago's contradictions, his motivations, his struggles. But I feel like there's this kind of elephant in the room we haven't really fully addressed. How do we reconcile this seemingly good Catholic man with the fact that he's profiting from a system that's built on the backs of his own people?
Yeah, that's the heart of it, right? Is Rizal painting Tiago as someone trapped by circumstance or as a willing participant in the suffering of Filipinos? I think it's easy to just dismiss him as a product of his time, but it's more complicated.
Well, his wealth isn't just magically appearing.
Right.
We know it's tied to land ownership, his close relationship with the church, and those sources of wealth, as we discussed, came from exploiting Filipino labor under the encomienda system.
Exactly. So Tiago's comfortable life is directly linked the fruits of that exploitation. And it's a moral gray area that a lot of people in positions of privilege, even today, have to grapple with.
And then there's his whole obsession with marrying Maria Clara to a wealthy Spaniard. It's not just about love or even social climbing. It feels like this calculated move to solidify his status within that colonial hierarchy. Like he's trying to buy acceptance.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It speaks to his deepest insecurities. He wants to ensure his family's safety and elevate their position in a society that views Filipinos as second-class citizens. And marrying Maria Clara into a powerful Spanish family is a way to achieve that, even if it means sacrificing her happiness.
It's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you consider how much Tiago seems to love Maria Clara. Is he so blinded by his ambition that he's willing to use his own daughter as a pawn in this game of social chess? It makes you question how far any of us would go to protect those we love, even if it means compromising our values.
And this kind of moral dilemma is what makes Tiago such a compelling character. He's not a mustache-twirling villain, nor is he a pure, innocent victim. He's a flawed human being, caught in a web of his own making, just trying to navigate a system that offers him limited options.
And that's where Rizal's genius shines through. He doesn't give us easy answers or tidy resolutions. He forces us to confront the complexities of colonialism and its impact, not just on society as a whole, but on the individual soul.
And remember, Tiago is a man of faith. He genuinely believes in the teachings of the church. But how does he reconcile that faith with his actions, with the compromises he makes? It raises a question that's haunted humanity for ages. Can we be complicit in a system and still believe ourselves to be good?
Yeah, it's that inner turmoil, that struggle between his beliefs and his actions that makes Tiago such a timeless character. He reflects the moral struggles we all face in a world where doing the right thing often comes with a pretty hefty price tag.
So how does Tiago's story end? Does he find redemption? Does he pay for his complicity? Well, that's where things get really interesting. Rizel leaves that open to interpretation. Some might argue that Tiago is too entangled in the system to ever truly break free. He made his choices, and he has to live with the consequences.
Others might see him as a tragic figure, someone who ultimately loses himself. In this pursuit of wealth and status, he sacrifices his integrity, his daughter's happiness, all for the sake of a system that will never fully accept him. And it's hasn't.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale for anyone who thinks they can play the game without getting their hands dirty.
Exactly. Tiago's story reminds us that even those who appear to benefit from a corrupt system can still be its victims. And it challenges us to ask ourselves, are we willing to be passive bystanders? Or are we going to fight for a more just world, even if it means sacrificing our own comfort or privilege?
That's the real legacy of Kapitan Tiago, isn't it? He's a mirror, reflecting our own complexities, our own moral compromises, and our own potential to either perpetuate or challenge the systems that shape our lives. It's a conversation that's as relevant today as it was in Rizel's time.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this thought. Kapitan Tiago's story isn't just about one man in 19th century Philippines. It's about all of us, It's about recognizing our own place within the systems that we inhabit, examining our choices, and ultimately deciding what kind of world we want to live in.
That's the power of great literature, isn't it? To challenge us, to make us uncomfortable, and ultimately, to inspire us to be better. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Noli Tangere and the enigmatic character of Kapitan Tiago. We hope this conversation sparked some reflection, maybe even some healthy debate. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into